Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. It is Monday, April 15th, right? Tax day. Maybe we should talk about taxes today. We're not going to, but I am, I don't know, maybe. I'm Kimberly. This is Zach, and we're your hosts for today on Mondays. Right?
Absolutely. I was watching Wednesday the other day. I was watching Chase's episode, and it was fantastic the way he introduced himself. And we were talking about that we got to kind of let people know who we are and what we do. And that's a tough one.
I am Kimberly Odie.
Yeah. And I'm Zach Odie, and we're parents, we're entrepreneurs. And today we are here hosting the Money Monday segment. And we have a guest that came over to us last week that has come back to us again today because we had a lot of interest, a lot of traction. As I mentioned, Kimberly will give Jason's official bio here in just a second. But as I mentioned last week, Jason and I go way back. We went to the same college. We're in the same fraternity. And we had an unfortunate reason to get together with a lot of our college friends this past week. We lost one of our own. But in that gathering and in that communication, there was a lot of talk and a lot of excitement about our podcast. As people didn't know that I had a podcast, and they didn't know Jason was on it. So
now y'all are semi-famous, right?
We've had a lot of views, and and we're excited to continue down this path. And Jason is a self-proclaimed invested expert in the cryptocurrency world, and we've had a lot of time over the last couple of days personally to talk about those things, and I become more and more fascinated every time I listen to what he's got to say and what he's got to offer. So Kimberly, tell the rest of the world that doesn't know Jason who he is.
Yeah, so let me tell you about Jason. Better known as Portt, right? Every time you say Jason, I'm like, who are you talking about? But Jason Portt, yeah, whatever you want to call him, I'm sure he'll answer. But in 2015, he recognized the potential of Bitcoin as an emerging asset class, sparking a journey of advocacy and in-depth study. His fascination with its decentralized nature and the promise of blockchain technology led him to become a vocal proponent of its adoption. Over the years, his dedication has extended beyond mere support. He's delved into the intricacies of the Bitcoin protocol and its investment landscape. This dual perspective has equipped him with a comprehensive understanding of its capabilities and challenges, solidifying his role as a knowledgeable and passionate advocate to the field. So we're super excited to host you again today. I think for all of us, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain, it's fascinating because it's at least for me and probably the rest of the world, it's a little unknown, right? It's intriguing. Our question today is how or where can you buy Bitcoin and the strategies to do it? So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for having us all weekend and coming back on today to continue to share your knowledge and all the information that you've learned through the years about Bitcoin and make us smarter. So
actually, I love, all of that you just read off. It sounds fancy, but the truth is there's a saying we kind of have those that are big Bitcoin supporters and have done this for a while, and it's just do the work. And honestly, I didn't go get a certification. I didn't go get a finance degree or an economics degree. I got interested. And once I became interested and I pulled that thread, there was no stopping. It's just one thing after another. And so really yes, advocate, definitely, expert, self-proclaimed for sure, because really I just did the work.
Yeah.
To learn what I needed to learn.
That there's a valuable lesson there across the board, right? So we talked about that a little bit not too long ago, where John Maxwell on a podcast that Kimberly was listening to said some guy came up to him at one of his last talks, and he said, "John, I want to do what you do. It looks amazing. I want to travel the world and motivate people and talk to them." And he said, "You do. That's great. But do you want to do what I did?" Because in order to do what I do, you have to first do what I did. So yeah, I mean, that do the work, right? And
that's right.
So we're kind of piggybacking off of your work, and I think that's one of the fascinating things. And you said this weekend about people that are passionate about the crypto world and about Bitcoin and those kind of things. they want to share. It's not a selfish set of knowledge. They want to talk about it. They want to share, to the point where we even have a joke, kind of a running joke around our fraternity brothers when we get together. It's like, don't say Bitcoin.
That's true.
Say Bitcoin. We will lose Jason for hours, and he will take someone or two of us with him. So, but yeah, so we've all gotten our, at least I have certainly gotten my interest is piqued. My first question for you, and you'll be very prepared for this answer, but Bitcoin's down from last time we talked. Is it still a good investment? Is it still something I should look at?
Absolutely. In fact, we consider these types of dips and corrections buying opportunities. I think you have to really, with any type of investments you're looking at, it's, there's geopolitical risk right now going on in the world. A lot of this is being telegraphed to us. It's interesting. We live in this information age now. In the past, we would have woken up Monday morning, Dow would have been down 800 points. We'd have said what happened, and then the news would have trickled in. This was telegraphed this time. We were told Iran was going to be, making a move, and it was to be expected. And of course, if you watch futures and options, especially when it comes to oil and things like that, people were diving in early. They expected some sort of pullback. Bitcoin isn't an exception to those rules. I've got a lot of people that have called me in a panic, and I've spoke to them about it, but I've had a lot of people call me and say, you won't believe it, I just bought more at this price, and they're really excited. So, and Zach, I have to say that's an excellent point of, you really have to look at your time horizon with anything with investing, but especially with Bitcoin. I mean, the simple formula is, if you're going to buy and you're going to get into Bitcoin, your time horizon should be at least 4 years. In fact, there's a statistic: anyone that has bought Bitcoin and held it at least 4 years is not in a loss.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was interesting when you said last week, and you talked about that graph from beginning of Bitcoin to now. Like, if you look at the moments, there's a lot of volatility, but if you zoom out, I think is what you said, right? And you look from beginning to now, what was the do you remember the growth percentage that you said from beginning to now on Bitcoin?
I think I don't have the notes in front of me. In fact, it's interesting on,
right?
Sure. Yeah, I've seen, when you're talking compound annual growth thing and things like that, depending on how everybody likes to calculate things a little bit differently. But you're seeing anywhere from 70% to 1,500%, depending on which time frames you're looking at and when purchases were made, whether you're smoothing that due to corrections or not. So either way, it's the best returning asset out of pretty much everything out there over the last 5 years, and frankly, over the last 15.
Well, it's definitely becoming more, I don't know if I'll say maybe more popular, but definitely more well known. A lot of the just basic insurance advisors, we follow Tom Hegna, who is a tried and true insurance advisor, and that's what he does, right? And now, instead of giving out insurance advice, he goes and teaches insurance professionals, right? Talking about index universal lives and permanent life insurance and just everything from that world. And he's been saying for years, he's like, just 1%, just do something that he totally believes. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think the comfort for everyone across the board, maybe they're not, bullish that you should put it all there or you should put a big portion there, but they're at least saying stick your toe in, at least try it out, right? And you see that with BlackRock and the ETFs and the things like that they've just created. You shared a great commercial with us, I guess last week, that little cartoon, right, about one of the big banks talking about Bitcoin. And I think it's pretty fascinating that everybody seems to be adopting it, at least in some sort of comfort level.
Or they're at least asking the question. They're at least asking the question now of, should I look at this, or
right.
Why I've heard about this for a long time, but now people that I respect, or at least people that obviously made a lot of money at some point are looking at this, and maybe I should pay attention also.
So from that perspective, we're mentioning the ETF and going back to our question of the day. Guys, there's so much information here, and we may break this down and we may come back around to it. We're going to let Jason have next week off, at least, from being on here with us. But let's talk about acquiring Bitcoin if it's something you're interested in doing. So let's start out by talking about what's the difference, and we can go 30,000 feet on this because I know you can get real deep, but what would be the difference in me buying something like through my brokerage account and investing in the ETF that everybody's talking about, one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing ETF that's ever hit the market, or going through a Coinbase or a Cash App or something like that? What would be the difference for me as an investor between those two types of purchases?
Sure. I mean, I think at that point you have to come back to the risk piece. Whether or not you want third-party risk, which you're going to have if you do purchase through, a derivative of Bitcoin, which would be an ETF that is held. Those are shares. Those aren't physical Bitcoin. Of course, when the money comes in, BlackRock has to buy, or Fidelity, any of the others, they have to actually buy the physical Bitcoin, but the shares are created. So you can get in and out. It's not in kind settlement when you get out. It's cash only. So you're going in with cash, you're coming out with cash, but you're still getting the exposure to the price action of Bitcoin. So that is probably the simplest way in and out, but it does come with a third-party risk. I mean, I don't think any of us believe BlackRock's about to capitulate and go bankrupt or anything like that. But we also don't know, again, going back to the geopolitical environment and things like that, it's a lot easier for the government to step in and say there's a need for us to seize an asset or seize certain funds or things like that in order to pay for whatever it could be. Where if you are purchasing Bitcoin directly yourself, there's a different type of risk. The good news is you're self-sovereign, so you have that. No one can take that away from you. We can get into all of that another time, but you actually are responsible for holding it, kind of like holding gold bars. You can either buy a gold ETF, the gold somewhere. They tell you you can redeem it for gold. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just paper. But either way, you're in and you're out, but you don't actually have to be responsible for it. With Bitcoin, you want to be self-sovereign. You want to keep it yourself. That's fantastic. You eliminate the third-party risk. The risk there is how responsible are you at keeping up with things, and yeah, I think that's what most people's fear is. And that's what I hear the most is, oh goodness, if I had bought Bitcoin 10 years ago, I would have lost it by now. Probably, but I think more likely you would have sold it by now.
Right.
Most people would have doubled or tripled and said, wow, I'm out, look what I did. And then they'd be kicking themselves.
Absolutely. So tell us, as far as the ETF is concerned, if you're familiar with that type of investment strategy, you can purchase those things through the same types of accounts that you can any other ETF, as long as the place where you're holding that account will allow you to invest in the particular ETF, right? So that we're not going to dive into the transaction portion of that. If I want to buy in, let's say, I mean, we talked about this a little bit yesterday morning before we left. If I want to buy in, can I just go buy a Bitcoin? Like they're at $66,000. If I've got $66,000 this morning, how difficult is it going to be for me to go just buy one Bitcoin right now?
It's interesting because there's another saying we have is we're so early, and it's interesting because you used to be able to go and just buy a whole Bitcoin or multiple Bitcoins, no problem. Well, that's because the value was low enough that the banks really didn't care. Now with it priced where it is, it's hard to move $10,000 from one bank to another without getting a phone call or having, to answer a bunch of questions. And that's two banks that know each other. So if all of a sudden you're trying to push $66,000, usually the fraud department, the antenna goes up and the phone call comes in, and that's what you're dealing with. So I think that's a good reason to say you don't have to own a whole Bitcoin, just owning a fraction of a Bitcoin. And we've done the math before. There's 8 billion people on the planet. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. If you want to do the math on that, you can see the most amount any single individual could have if it was equally distributed across everybody. So try to get out of the mindset of I've got to get a coin or I've missed the boat, I can't be in. That's not the way you should be looking at it.
I want to go to that special Bitcoin dinner you were talking about, where everybody was talking about how many coins they own. So that's the goal, right?
Yes. Well, and that's another thing. I think I said it to y'all this weekend. It's funny, or maybe I said it last week, but we always grew up, you don't talk about money. And when it comes to Bitcoin, people love to talk about money.
It's so funny because we've talked a lot about money mindset and how you grow up with your relationship with money. And Dr. Monica, who's another one of the hosts of the Daily Huddle, she shared with us that, basically our mindset about money and our relationship with money, we formulate it based on how our family was relating to money between the ages of 0 and 7. And whatever our family was going through at that point in time, how we saw money. And that's one of the things that I think with us growing up, certainly, whether your family had a lot of money or whether your family didn't have much money at all, or whether you were right in the middle, you wanted to keep an air of suspense, right? You didn't want to lay all your laundry out, whether it was super clean or super dirty. You didn't want anybody to know. And I think with the Bitcoin population, and we've got another friend that you've been introduced to, and he's very excited about getting into this conversation. So we may have 3 screens and do that down the road a little bit. But he's been wanting to talk to us, and he's been talking to everybody about Bitcoin. And we've been part of.
It feels like since the beginning for him,
forever. Now, right, we're those people looking back and talking to the Jasons, the 2 Jasons about Bitcoin, and we're like, why didn't we listen? Why were we such traditional advisors back in the day? So, but yeah, so let's talk about the actual acquisition of fractional Bitcoin. There's so many platforms. There's so many. What did those platforms do? Like we'll talk about I've mentioned Cash App because that's where the very tiny little bit of off of 0 Bitcoin is that I have. But what are some of the other ones? Not plugging any one for any reason or another, but I know that there are fees that are in consideration, and there are also systematic investments that you can set up. So what are some of the things that we should think about? I know I want to get to dollar cost averaging and what that is in just a few minutes. So we'll circle back to that, but take off. If somebody asks you day one, I'm sitting on 0. What are some of the options that I have where I can go and buy some fractional Bitcoin, and which ones should I use and why?
Absolutely. We've already talked about the ETFs, but unless with the exception of Robinhood or maybe a few others, some of the brokerages aren't offering access yet to some of these ETFs. They're still on the learning and figuring it out stage. So which is really testament to Bitcoin in the sense of it was really designed for the people. And a lot of people really believe that. And this is something that anyone was supposed to, or anyone can have access to. This isn't a walled garden that you can't get into. And many people would be surprised, but if you think hard, you might remember seeing it. One of the first places people would buy Bitcoin was a Bitcoin ATM. They still exist. You can find them in gas stations. You can find them, in fact, just do a search online and you'll start seeing the dots pop up. You can go straight in there. You should be able to go in, pump few $100s in or however much, and you got your Bitcoin. And sure enough, after it, like everything, now you have to get a text message and go through a verification and a million other things. But it's one of the quickest, easiest ways to get a small amount of Bitcoin. You can go in, put in, again, a couple $100s, whatever it might be. It prints off a ticket. That ticket has a code and a QR code. That technically is your Bitcoin. It's basically your document that says this is your account for Bitcoin that exists in cyberspace.
And if I lost that ticket, that Bitcoin still exists, but nobody can buy it, nobody can sell it, and I can't use it because I lost that ticket.
You lost that ticket.
That's a risk from that perspective.
It is a risk. That's right. There's people that self-sovereign, they've gone from paper to carbon fiber steel plates that are engraved, that are fireproof, etc., that they keep in a fireproof, waterproof safe inside of another one buried in the ground. This is stuff where you don't want to lose this, and you don't want someone to find it. But it's interesting because there's been multiple Bitcoin improvements. They're called BIPs, Bitcoin improvement. And when this happened, they've made it more simple for you to self-sovereign without the headache of long alphanumeric codes and things like that you would have to store or you would have to remember. Now, if you can remember a 12-word seed phrase, randomized words, but if you can remember these things like golf, chair, etc., and you can burn that into your mind, then that's probably one of the best storage devices you can have out there. But of course, you want redundancy, so you want to take those kind of precautions.
So if I don't want to do all that, and I don't want to be 100% self-sovereign with my Bitcoin only existing in my home or in my safe, and I want to use another service, and I want to set up, let's say, a dollar cost averaging type scenario. I know some of the purchasing options, the fee structures are different. They're breakpoints, those kind of things. What should we be looking at from that perspective? Like I was looking the other day, and I know that like Cash App, for example, is on a sliding scale that, their best price is if you buy $5,000 worth of Bitcoin, you pay 75 basis points, that kind of thing. So but if you're buying small amounts, the fee is a larger percentage. So is there anywhere that we should think about if we want to buy smaller things where our fees would be less or whatever?
Sure. No, you're right. The fees always get passed on and passed on and passed on. It's the little people that end up paying the most in fees typically. So absolutely, you can go into Cash App, you can go into PayPal, you can go into Venmo. You're going to pay fees on that, but those are considered hot wallets, meaning, and they're custodial wallets. So you don't actually hold the Bitcoin. You just have an account with one of those entities. They have the Bitcoin. If something happened to them, that's third-party risk. But you will pay those fees. However, it's liquid. You need to sell for some reason, or you need to move money quickly, something like that. Then there's not a problem to sell that on those. So Zach, I directed you a while back to Strike, and one of the reasons I really like Strike is because the fees are minimal. It's almost, they actually push zero fees on purchases, but you're also limited, I believe, to $1,000. I don't know if that's like a day or week or something like that. So there's caps on some of that when it comes to the zero fees, but it's a great way if you're worried about fees, you can. And for most of these, including Coinbase, Kraken, Robinhood, etc., you can actually have direct deposit straight to them where you dollar cost average in. So if you get, a biweekly paycheck, you can have the majority of that go to your normal account, or maybe you're already splitting it across multiple accounts, but you can set aside, $150, $100, whatever it might be, that directly goes to Cash App where the purchase is automatically done at a certain time interval. And so that's dollar cost averaging in. We don't care about the price. We just know we're going to buy X amount of dollars worth. That either gets us more or less Bitcoin, depending on what the price is, and that purchase continues. And mathematically, looking back, all the way back since the beginning of Bitcoin, had you done this, you would, of course, be sitting in a profit. So the volatility, it really helps for people that can't stomach the volatility.
So as we move into time flies when we're talking and having a good dialogue, which I love, but as we're moving into the Q&A section where we can have some people ask some questions and go down that route, I like to circle back to a basic financial concept. And that's why I said I wanted to get back to dollar cost averaging. Some people hear that. We've been teaching the concept of dollar cost averaging for a couple decades now. And that is something that I think is important for people to understand. What does that mean? How would you explain it in very simple terms? And then I will see if I like your explanation and add to it, or just give you the tap of Sir Jason Portt. So what would you say dollar cost averaging, not necessarily related to Bitcoin, but just across the board? What is that concept?
Sure. It's the concept of really averaging your purchases and the cost across time, across a period of time. People that are wanting to get into investing and want to start building that nest egg, obviously you look at your time horizon, what is it, 20 years, 30 years? I always say, with Bitcoin, at least 4 years. But dollar cost averaging, you're really taking a time interval, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, etc., and a certain set amount of dollars, and you're making a purchase, regardless of the price. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin or any investment, you can do this with Apple, etc., is at the highest cost or the lowest cost. That means you typically catch dips. You also buy high, but over a period of time, it smooths out, and the average is is really what you're looking for.
Yeah. And most people are doing this systematically if they're contributing out of their paychecks to a 401k or to some sort of a retirement plan. They just don't know that they're doing that. Right. But the concept there is fantastic, because when you take and timing, we can learn about the market and what we think the market might do, right? But as laymen, right, as people that aren't experts in underlying market trends and those kind of things, I mean, I've seen Jason's computer screens and I know what he's talking about, but I've been doing this for a long time and he can lose me real quickly because he studies it even more than I do. We have relationships with professional managers that do that for our clients on the stock market side of things. And they're not Bitcoin folks, they're traditional market advisors. But I would tell you, if you try to time the market, you will lose 99% of the time. The people that try to manage their own 401k investments or their own side accounts or whatever based on what they read on Google, or we used to call it the Yahoo effect, where the headline would tell me how to trade. They're already behind the curve. So dollar cost averaging is a good way for an average person to say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on what the market is doing. I'm going to focus on what I can control, which is my behavior and my consistency in investing towards my future. So I think it's really important to understand that, even when we're talking about Bitcoin, but especially when we're talking about across the board. Don't get in out of your depth, right? Don't try to be more intuitive or act like you know more than you do. I know that's hard to say. Let control what you can, which is investing in habits and doing it that way. And if you want to use Bitcoin as part of that for yourself, then take the information that you're getting and ask more questions. Like Jason said, pull that thread, start doing the work and see if it's right for you. Again, I tell everybody, because I'm not talking to anyone in particular person, this is not a recommendation to buy or an advice that I'm recommending or that even Jason's recommending or Kimberly is for you specifically. It is an informative session. We're very interested, as is a lot of the population. So that's what we're here for, is education. And to get you to start asking those questions. So in that light, if you have some questions, let's open it up for you guys to do that.
And Zach, I wanted to throw in real quick that, we do this all the time. It's a lot easier to dollar cost average or contribute a little bit at a time into your IRA, throughout the year than it is to write that check, on tax day, and to try to throw it in. Same thing with homeowners insurance and whatnot with escrow. It's a lot easier to pay that mortgage and set that small amount aside monthly than it is to write a big check. So at the end.
All right. Great example for sure. Well, we're running against time here because that's what we like to do. But anybody have any questions you want to unmute and ask while we have our resident expert with us today?
I got a quick one.
Hey, Sorrel.
A friend recently advised a nonprofit organization I'm connected with to get a Strike wallet so that people may be in a position to make contributions to that organization through their Strike account. Could you say a little more about a Strike wallet and how easy it is for any organization or anyone to create an account and have a wallet?
Sure. Strike is very, very similar to Venmo or Cash App, something like that. But the big value proposition for Strike for a long time is the fact that they're very big on cross-border transactions. One of the most painful things for people in the U.S. that are from another country that have family outside of the U.S., when they make money here and they try to send it back home, especially South America, Africa, etc., then the money men in between the transaction fees and everything, a single dollar maybe we'll see 23 cents make it to the end of that. Yeah, once it finally reaches its destination. And Strike is Jack Mallers is fantastic. He's fun to watch and a very smart person, but he's the CEO of Strike, and his goal was to make this a new means of transaction that is outside of the system that everybody else has been using, the ACH and everything like that. And what's interesting about Strike is you're actually utilizing the Bitcoin protocol. Whenever you send money, say you're sending $1,000, I send it from myself to Zach. instead of that money, like it would be through Cash App or Venmo, being sent, it goes to the bank sends it ACH to the other bank, and then it shows up as digital numbers on Zach's screen. He sees that he has it. Maybe there's a fee associated. Strike converts that $1,000 into Bitcoin, sends it for pretty much nothing to Zach's account, and then it converts back to dollars, or it could arrive in Bitcoin. It really depends on how Zach chooses to receive it. So for a nonprofit organization,
can we try that live just for the benefit of everyone?
Yeah. How much do you want to send me?
$10,000 my way? That'd be great.
Yeah. For a nonprofit organization, though, the beautiful thing about Strike is once you go in and you set up that account, obviously, I believe you'd be able to mark it as nonprofit, and maybe you'd need to provide something for that. But they would get to decide whether the donations that come in are received in fiat, in dollars, or whether it would be in Bitcoin or I should just say Bitcoin. So that's a really nice option that they would have. They can also decide whether or not they want to instantly convert the Bitcoin and instantly have it transferred out to a separate account. So Strike automates a lot of different things. Those are some really great options you would have.
Awesome. Robin?
Yeah, so it's kind of late to try and jump into this, but we'll save this for the next time around. XRP and the Exodus wallet. Those are two questions that I had about what your thoughts are on those.
Sure. XRP is with Ripple Labs. They've been in the news quite a bit. It's a roller coaster to really watch the litigation going back and forth. They've been very successful. Then, the SEC finds another way to try to hit them with fines or fees or something else. And so this is an ongoing thing, but they have a fantastic product. They're originally designed for the banking system, really to be a settlement layer for banks to be able to settle between each other. I think XRP it's been around for a long time. And like I said last week, the longer something's around, the longer it's probably going to stay around. And so as an altcoin, we're talking about Bitcoin, but there are certain altcoins that I think are worth paying attention to, and XRP is definitely one of them. As for the Exodus wallet, I've used it. I think it's incredibly intuitive. The user interface is very, very simple. You've got multiple different options. It is a hot wallet. It's an app that sits on your phone. You don't have cold storage option. So that's something you want to think about. Cold storage, it makes it almost, it's offline. It's almost impossible for someone to get to if it's not physically. But online, you end up downloading the wrong thing to your phone or your computer, then that app could potentially be accessed. So, but it's the same with your banking apps. I mean, there's a pandemic right now, they say, with these malware that's going after your banking apps, your Bank of America and everything else. So it's not exclusive to crypto. The bad actors, you have to do your due diligence. But I would recommend Exodus wallets anyway.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. So Florence, we have time. Well, we don't have time because we're out, but we will make time for one more quick question because I see you have your hand raised.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I just wanted to know if you spoke about hard wallets already. Like Trezor, there's a hard wallet called Trezor and different other hard wallets. So
absolutely. I have not talked about it yet, but I'm glad you brought it up. Hard wallets are basically a device that is air-gapped, meaning it's not plugged in to the internet. It's offline, and you plug it in via USB, or some of them actually can use Bluetooth. But when they come online, you enter your password, and then you can transact on the blockchain. I use Trezor personally. I love Trezor. I've tried Ledger in the past. There's I think it's elliptical, something like that. There's multiple different ones that have been developed. So just do your homework. If I had to do a plug, I would say Trezor is one of the best I've worked with. I really think the development they've done over the years has been fantastic. But the benefit of a hard wallet is you move your coins, your Bitcoin to this hard wallet, and then you've got this small device you put in your safe. You're not having to keep up with paper, things like that. So it's also a good way if, for generational wealth planning. in the sense that if you need to pass this down to somebody, that's a good way to do it. But there's also other services like Unchained out there. I always like to point people to that. They help with estate planning, inheritance, etc. when it comes to this stuff. I mean, if something happened to me tomorrow, my wife would say, where's the book that tells me what I'm supposed to be doing right now? And so I'm writing that one, you know, as we go. But looking at a third party that could potentially come in and help a loved one if something happened to you is a good idea. And many people don't know that there are Bitcoin IRAs out there, and and Roths. And so, you know, maybe you're not comfortable buying and holding it. Maybe you don't want to be in the ETF world with something that's, you know, going through price discovery. But, you know, if your time horizon is long enough, maybe buy Bitcoin and put it in an IRA. And if it's a Roth or something like that, then tax deferred down the road, you can trade, you know, as much as you want within that entity, and then you know, your future could look pretty bright.
There you go. Well, thank you guys.
It's fascinating for sure.
I'll remind you all, because this is what we do and this is why we do what we do. But if you have questions about your specific situation and what fits, I'm happy for you to reach out to us. We'll do a free needs analysis for you and give you a breakdown based on your goals and what you want to get accomplished. That's our business. That's what we've been doing for years. And so if any of this seems like it's over your head, or you just want somebody else to tell you, is this a good time for me to do this, that, and the other, reach out to Kimberly or myself and let us schedule a time to do that with you. But as we close today, thank you, Jason, very, very much for being here again, and for many years of friendship and many to come. But we remind everybody of our 8 tenets at the Daily Huddle. Number 1, love. And we did a lot of that this last couple of days. So laugh out loud, enjoy time, enjoy things, stress less, eat good things that are good for your body, take care of your body, give your time, give your Bitcoin to me, give everything, whatever, just give. It feels good to give. Get some sleep, rest, move your body, exercise, and then finally, give yourself that minute, that time between stimulus and response, and check yourself before you wreck yourself. Guys, lovely to see you today. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow on the Daily Huddle. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube. You can watch us from anywhere in the world, anytime you can. You don't have to log on to Zoom to do it, as long as you subscribe to our channel. And join these other hosts too. If you're not familiar with their days, join them. They're all spectacular. So same time, same place tomorrow, guys, on the Daily Huddle.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.